Imagine being claimed by a powerful king, but treated worse than his lowest servant. Imagine growing his heir inside your belly, while his entire court mocks you, humiliates you, destroys your spirit. And he says nothing. But when you disappear into the night, with his unborn child, the king the world fears falls to his knees for the very first time. This is the story of the Sun Queen. I love knowing where my listeners are, so before this story unfolds, drop your location in the comment. Lyra had lived in the night court for 9 months, but not once had she felt like she belonged. Every hall, every corridor, every glowing lantern felt colder than the last. The palace was beautiful white marble floors that shined like glass, walls decorated with glittering silver threads, and giant windows showing the endless dark sky, but none of that beauty softened the cruelty inside it. The nobles of the night court were vampires with sharp tongues and sharper eyes. They walked gracefully, spoke sweetly, but their words were poison. And Lyra, the only human living among them, was their favorite target. When she walked into the grand hall that evening, the whispers started immediately. "There she is," Lady Serene said loudly, sipping her red wine. "The Emperor's pet." The group around her laughed softly, hiding their smiles behind jeweled fans. "She smells like sunshine," another noblewoman added with a dramatic wrinkle of her nose. Honestly offensive. Lyra kept her head down. She tried not to react. If she even looked their way, they would find new things to mock. She took a seat at the far end of the long dining table, hoping no one would bother her. But tonight was not a night for peace. Lady Serene stood and walked the full length of the table toward Lyra. Her gown was deep blue, shimmering like frozen stars. Her eyes glowed faintly with predatory light. "Well, well," she said, stopping in front of Lyra. "Our little pet is early today. Trying to impress the Emperor?" Lyra shook her head. I just didn't want to be late." Serene leaned down so her face was inches from Lyra's. "You don't need to worry about that. The Emperor never looks at you anyway." The words hit like ice. Lyra knew they were meant to hurt, and they did. Caliph, the Emperor of the Night Realm, sat at the head of the table. So cold. So still. So breathtaking. He was carved from shadow and pale moonlight, with long dark hair and silver eyes that could freeze someone in place. He was powerful. Fearless. Worshipped by his court. And completely silent when they humiliated her. That was what hurt the most. Not their insults. Not the cruel jokes. But his silence, Caliph watching everything, doing nothing. Tonight was no different. As Serene mocked Lyra, he sat still, expression unreadable. His eyes flicked briefly in their direction and then away again. "I don't want trouble," Lyra whispered. "Please just let me sit." Serene smiled, cruel and satisfied. "Sit? Of course. Pets always sit when told." She lifted her wine goblet and accidentally spilled the contents all over Lyra's dress. A splash of red stained the pale cloth instantly, dripping onto her lap and the floor. Gasps filled the hall. "Oh no," Serene said, touching her lips in fake shock. "My hand slipped." Lyra stood quickly, wiping at the stain. Her hands shook. I'll clean it," she said, voice cracking. Serene stepped closer. "You should be grateful. Red suits you. Makes you look less plain." Lyra's throat tightened. She looked toward Caliph. Just a glance. Just hoping, foolishly, that he might say something. But he was staring at the parchment in front of him, as if he hadn't seen anything at all. Lady Serene leaned in again, voice low so only Lyra heard. "He keeps you only because you amuse him. You are nothing here." Lyra's heart throbbed painfully. She turned and hurried out of the hall, unable to hold the tears back anymore. The moment she stepped into the empty corridor, she pressed her back against the wall, breathing shakily. The palace torches flickered, painting shadows across her face. I can't stay here," she whispered. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. Hidden beneath her gown was a secret, one she guarded with every bit of strength she had left. A child. A small, growing life. A life she would die to protect. The Emperor's child. She hadn't told anyone. She couldn't. If the court found out, They would call the baby a threat. A mistake. An abomination. Half human, half immortal. They would kill her. And maybe kill the child too. Lyra pressed her palm harder against her stomach, whispering softly, "I won't let anyone hurt you. I promise." Her heart pounded painfully. She knew what she had to do. She needed to escape. The next morning, Lyra woke early. Her body felt heavy and weak, and her lower back throbbed with a steady ache. Pregnancy was hard even in normal circumstances, but in a palace full of cold stones, icy air, and silent cruelty, it felt impossible. When she sat up in bed, she felt a small flutter beneath her hand. A tiny movement. Her baby. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but fierce determination. "You're strong," she whispered. "Stronger than I ever imagined." But she needed to move carefully. Someone might see the growing change in her body. The court watched everything. She wrapped herself in a loose gown and slipped into the hallway. As she approached the courtyard, she found two noblemen talking in hushed tones. She froze, staying hidden behind a pillar. One of them laughed. "Did you see her face last night?" The human almost cried. The other smirked. "I don't know why the emperor keeps her around. She's weak. Humans break so easily." Lyra swallowed hard. "You think he'll get rid of her soon?" the first noble asked. "Probably. He loses interest quickly. And she's useless. Too fragile. She'd never survive as a real bride of the night court." Their laughter stabbed her like knives. She backed away quietly, heart pounding. These nobles weren't the only problem. The emperor himself was becoming distant in ways she didn't understand. 3 days ago, she had tried to speak to him. She had knocked softly on his study door. "Come in," his deep voice had said. She had stepped inside, nervous but hopeful. He was standing near a tall window, moonlight spilling across his hair. "Your Majesty," she had whispered. He didn't look at her. "Yes. I haven't been feeling well lately." Silence. She tried again. "I think something is wrong with me." Caliph turned a page in the book he was holding, voice calm and cold. "Humans are fragile. It is expected." Her heart sank. "I was hoping," she hesitated. "Maybe you could send a healer? A physician?" "You want a healer?" he repeated, his tone unreadable. "Yes," she whispered. "Please." He closed the book. "You do not need a healer," he said. "You need rest. Do not trouble yourself with unnecessary concerns." He had walked past her and left the room without another word. She had stood frozen, tears burning behind her eyes. He didn't know. He didn't see. He didn't care. Or maybe, he didn't want to. Now, standing in the courtyard, she pressed a shaking hand to her stomach again. "I have to leave," she whispered. "Before they discover you." A soft voice suddenly called out. "Lyra." She turned quickly, startled. It was Turin, a young servant boy she had once helped when he injured his arm. He was carrying a stack of folded linens and looked concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. Lyra forced a smile. "Of course. Just tired." Turin frowned. "You don't look okay." Lyra hesitated. She shouldn't tell anyone. It was too risky. But Turin wasn't like the others. He never mocked her. He wasn't cruel. "Can I ask you something?" she asked in a low voice. He nodded immediately. "Anything." She glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. "Turin," she whispered, "if someone needed to leave the palace, quietly, could they?" His eyes widened. "Leave? Why would you?" "Please," she said. "Just answer." He looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "There's a servant tunnel behind the old kitchen. It leads to the outer courtyard. Only workers use it. No guards." Her breath caught. "It's unguarded." He nodded quickly. "Mostly. But it's hidden. No one important uses it." Lyra felt a spark of hope. Small, fragile, but real. "Thank you, Turin," she whispered. But the boy grabbed her hand suddenly. "You can't go alone," he said. Please tell me why." She bit her lip. Her throat felt tight. She looked around again to make sure no one could hear. Then she whispered the truth. I'm pregnant. Turin's eyes widened so much she thought he might scream. She quickly clapped a hand over his mouth. Shh. Please don't say anything. His voice was muffled under her hand. The Emperor's. She nodded, tears rising in her eyes. Yes. Turin slowly removed her hand, trembling. If the nobles find out. I know, she whispered. That's why I have to leave. He looked terrified, but he nodded firmly. I'll help you. You don't have to. I want to, he said. You saved me. Let me save you now. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. He took a shaky breath. Tonight. After the moon rises. I'll bring you a cloak and food. She squeezed his hand. I'll be ready. That night, Lyra sat in her chamber, staring at a small bag she had packed. She didn't own much. A small silver locket from her mother. A few coins. 2 dresses. And a piece of cloth to wrap her baby when the time came. Her hands trembled as she fastened the bag. This is our chance, she whispered to her unborn child. We have to be brave. A knock sounded at the door, 2 soft taps. Turin. She opened the door and found him standing there, holding a dark cloak and a small satchel of food. I got everything, he whispered. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, she breathed. It's the only way. Then hurry, he said. The servants are changing shifts. It's the safest time. They moved quietly through the corridors. Every step felt dangerous. Every shadow felt like an enemy. When they reached the old kitchen, Turin pushed aside a wooden panel. Behind it was a narrow stone tunnel. This leads outside, he whispered. But once you go, you can't come back. Lyra looked at the dark tunnel. Freedom was on the other side. But so was uncertainty. Danger. Fear. Still, anything was better than letting the court destroy her child. She hugged Turin tightly. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. He swallowed hard. May the light guide you. She stepped into the tunnel. The air was cold. The darkness thick. She kept one hand on her stomach, whispering softly. We're leaving. We're going to survive. I promise. As she moved deeper into the tunnel, the palace lights faded behind her. The life she knew, the suffering, the humiliation, the Emperor's cold silence slowly slipped away. Ahead of her, somewhere in the darkness, was a new life. A new beginning. A chance to save her unborn child, even if it meant losing everything else. Night in the night court was colder than usual. The moon hung low, heavy, like it was watching Lyra from above. The palace was silent, but not a peaceful silence. This one felt like it was waiting, listening, ready to expose her if she made even one mistake. Lyra stood at the edge of the servant tunnel, wrapped in the dark cloak Turin had given her. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure someone would hear it. She kept her hand on her belly, the baby's soft movements reminding her why she had to be brave. Let's go, she whispered shakily. The tunnel was narrow and cold, the ceiling low enough that she had to keep her head bowed. Water dripped slowly from the stone, echoing like footsteps. Every drop made her flinch. Her breath fogged in the air as she walked, the cloak brushing against the rough floor. At one point, she stumbled over a loose stone and had to bite her lip to keep from crying out. Please, she whispered to the darkness, please let me reach the end. After what felt like hours, faint moonlight appeared ahead, an exit. She felt a surge of hope. She quickened her steps, but then, footsteps. Real ones. Her blood turned to ice. Voices drifted into the tunnel, deep and casual. Guards changing positions. If they saw her, she would be dragged back. The nobles would laugh for months. The Emperor, he would probably stare in silence again. Worse, the court would discover she was pregnant. The baby would be taken away. No, she breathed. You can't catch me. Not now. She pressed herself against the stone wall, holding her cloak tightly. She forced her breathing to slow. The guard's footsteps grew closer. She could see the shadow of one man at the entrance. Her heart felt like it was going to burst. Shift's over, one guard said lazily. Let's go get warmed blood before it turns cold. Finally. That human pet drama last night ruined my appetite. They both laughed. Lyra closed her eyes, swallowing back tears. She couldn't afford to cry, not now. After a few painful seconds, the guards walked away, their footsteps fading into the night. She forced herself to move. One step. Then another. Until she reached the opening. Cold night air rushed into her face, carrying the scent of pine trees and wet earth. It felt like the first breath she'd taken in months. "I'm out," she whispered. "We're really out." She didn't stop. She couldn't. Her legs were shaking, but she forced them to run down the small slope, across the outer courtyard, and toward the dark forest ahead. Behind her, the palace glowed faintly, silent and unaware of the woman escaping into the night. Every step hurt. Her ankles twisted on roots and rocks. Her breath turned rough. But she didn't stop. She whispered to the child again and again. "We're going to make it. I promise." ***. What she didn't know was this. At that exact moment, inside the palace, Emperor Caliph was walking toward his private chambers. Something felt wrong. The door stood slightly open. That was strange. Lyra always closed it carefully, always respectful, always quiet. He stepped inside. The room was empty. Too empty. Cold. Still. He scanned the space with sharp, silver eyes. Her comb was missing. Her soft slippers were gone. Her cloak was not on its hook. Silence filled the room, the kind of silence that meant someone was gone. He stood completely still as a single, dark thought crawled into his mind. She left. He clenched his jaw. But then. He found the folded blanket she always placed on the bed. And beside it, something else. A small cloth. Embroidered with symbols. He picked it up slowly. His eyes widened. His breath caught. A birthing cloth. For a newborn. His voice came out as a whisper, raw and disbelieving. "Lyra." Then his expression changed. The Emperor's cold face cracked. Not with anger. But with fear. Pure, sharp fear. "She's carrying my child." Caliph stood in the center of Lyra's room like a man struck in the heart. His hand trembled as he held the birthing cloth. He stared at it for a long time, his mind refusing to accept what it meant. A child. His child. Growing inside the woman he had let suffer. A storm of emotions hit him all at once. Shock. Fear. Guilt. And a dark, rising rage. He whispered again, voice breaking for the first time in centuries. "She was pregnant, and I didn't see it." He turned toward the hallway. Guards. His roar cracked the air like thunder. 2 guards rushed to the doorway, bowing low. "Your Majesty, where is she?" His voice was shaking with power. "Who entered her chambers? Who escorted her today? Who saw her?" The guards exchanged fearful looks. She didn't leave her room today, Your Majesty." "Lies," Caliph said, stepping forward. His eyes blazed silver. "Her scent ends at the servant passages beneath the palace." The guards fell to their knees, trembling. We know nothing." Caliph lifted his hand not to strike, but to seize their minds. A cold wave of power pulsed through the air as he read their memories. Nothing useful. Only ignorance. Uselessness. He released them with a disgusted flick of his hand. They collapsed, gasping. "She escaped through the tunnels," he murmured. A servant helped her. He moved fast, too fast for any human eye to follow. His cloak whipped behind him as he reached the old kitchen in seconds. He pressed his hand to the hidden tunnel door. The wood shook violently, splintering under his touch. When it burst open, his expression darkened further. Her scent was there, sweet, warm, human, but fading. Too faint. "She has been gone for hours," he whispered. Hours. He stepped into the tunnel, the darkness curling around him like a cloak. Then he spoke, voice deep and deadly. "Summon the Nightblades. Now." ***. Minutes later, 5 shadows rose from the darkness and knelt before him in the old kitchen. The Nightblades, his strongest hunters, wore black armor that shimmered like obsidian, and their eyes glowed faintly under their hoods. "Your command, Emperor," the leader asked. Caliph stepped out of the tunnel, face hard. "You will track her." You will track the servant helping her. You will bring them both to me alive. The hunters bowed. Yes, my emperor. And listen well, Caliph added, voice dropping to a dangerous low growl. If she is harmed, if even a single hair on her head is touched, your lives will be a small price for my displeasure. The Nightblades stiffened. They nodded once and vanished into the night. Asterisk. Caliph remained standing in the courtyard, the cold wind pulling at his hair. His hands were still holding the birthing cloth. He stared down at it, the embroidery blurring. His mind replayed moments with her. Her tired eyes. Her quiet voice asking for help. Her hand covering her stomach. Her flinching when nobles insulted her. Her walking into rooms and pretending not to hear their laughter. His chest tightened in a way he hadn't felt for centuries. She was suffering, and I was blind. He closed his eyes. I allowed them to hurt her. I allowed my court to break her. And now she carries my heir into the wild, alone. His nails dug into his palm. His voice was low, shaking. What have I done? For the first time, the mighty Night Emperor looked small. Not in power, but in guilt. Then his eyes snapped open, and the crack in his heart hardened into something fierce. He turned sharply. Seal the gates. Yes, Your Majesty. Order every scout to search the forests. Every tracker in the kingdom. Every raven. Every wolf. Right away. And send word to the borders, he said coldly. Nothing enters or leaves the Night Realm until I say so. The guard ran off, terrified. Caliph stood still for a moment longer. The wind howled through the courtyard. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the stones. I will find you, Lyra. His grip tightened around the birthing cloth. And when I do, I will never let you suffer again. He lifted his face toward the moon. A warrior king. A guilty man. And now a desperate father. The hunt begins. With a surge of power, Caliph vanished into the night, following the faint, fading scent of the woman he had failed. And the unborn child who would change his entire world. Lyra ran until her legs felt like they were made of fire. She didn't know how long she'd been moving, minutes, hours, maybe the entire night. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. The forest welcomed her with its shadows and cold breath, but even this wild darkness felt safer than the palace. The trees towered above her like silent giants. Branches cracked under her feet. Her breath came in shaky gasps as she clutched her belly, whispering, "Hold on, little one. Hold on." The forest floor was uneven, full of roots and hidden stones. Twice she tripped, falling to her knees. Each time she cried out softly but forced herself back up. She had no choice. At last, her body gave out. She reached a small clearing surrounded by old trees covered in moss. Weak moonlight spilled through the branches. Lyra collapsed onto a fallen log, pressing her palms into her face. Her body shook not from cold, but from fear and exhaustion. "What am I doing?" she whispered. "Where can I even go?" But when she placed her trembling hand on her stomach, the baby moved gently, comforting her. "You're right," she whispered. "I can't give up." She reached into the satchel Turin had given her. Bread. Dried fruit. A small flask of water. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a day or two. She ate slowly, forcing her trembling jaw to chew. When she finished, she looked around the forest. It was quiet except for the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant howl of a wolf. Lyra knew she had to keep moving. The Night Court's hunters weren't like ordinary men. They didn't tire. They didn't rest. They didn't fail. Her only advantage was that they didn't know she'd left immediately. She had a head start, but not a big one. She stood, gathering her cloak around herself, and moved deeper into the forest. ****. The days that followed were the hardest she had ever lived. She traveled mostly at night, because the Night Realm had no daylight, only a softer silver glow during certain hours. Still, darkness was safer for her. Lyra slept in caves, under fallen logs, and once even inside the hollow of a massive tree. She drank from streams and collected berries she recognized. Her feet blistered and bled. Her lips cracked from cold. But she kept going. Her belly grew heavier. Each step became painful. At night, when she finally allowed herself to collapse onto the forest floor, she curled around her stomach and whispered stories to her child, stories her mother once told her. "You'll be brave," she murmured. "You'll be strong. You won't live in fear, I promise." Sometimes, she cried quietly, feeling hopeless. Sometimes she woke up in pain, terrified that something was wrong with the baby. Sometimes she felt so weak she could barely move. But every morning, she got back up. Her body was becoming wild, her hair tangled and full of leaves, her gown torn and dirty, her hands scratched. She was no longer the quiet girl of the night court. She was a survivor. ***. One evening, after days of wandering, she found an abandoned woodsman's hut. The roof was damaged, and half the walls were broken, but it still offered more shelter than the forest floor. She stepped inside, brushing aside cobwebs and dust. "This will do," she whispered. Over the next few days, she made it her temporary home. She patched the roof with pieces of bark and moss. She swept the floor with a broken branch. She built a fire using the few dry sticks she could gather. For the first time since escaping, Lyra felt a small spark of comfort. She found a few old tools, rusty but usable, and used them to gather food. She caught a rabbit in a simple trap she made from string Turin had packed. She roasted it carefully, savoring the warmth and taste. She hummed gently to her baby as she ate, rubbing her stomach in soft circles. "We're safe for now," she whispered. "Just for now." At night, she lay beside the small fire, staring at the wooden ceiling. She didn't let herself dream dreams led to disappointment. Then one night, the pain began. It started slowly, a dull ache in her lower back. She tried to ignore it, thinking maybe she'd overworked herself gathering firewood. But after an hour, the pain sharpened. It came in waves, stronger each time. "No, not now," she whispered, gripping the edge of the bed frame until her knuckles turned white. "Not here. Please, not alone." Another wave of pain crashed through her, forcing her to bend forward, breathing hard. She felt warmth run down her leg, and when she looked, she saw blood mixed with water. Her breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. "It's time," she whispered. Fear swallowed her. There was no midwife. No healer. No one but her. Another contraction hit, and she cried out, dropping to her knees. "Please," she whispered. "Please be safe, little one." Hours passed in a blur of pain and tears. Lyra pushed with everything she had left, her cries echoing through the empty hut. She clung to the broken bedpost, sweat pouring down her face. Then, one final push. A cry. A small, miraculous cry. A sound so powerful it filled the room with life. Lyra sobbed, grabbing the tiny, warm body with trembling hands. A baby boy. Her son. He was beautiful, dark hair like soft ink, pale skin with a faint silver glow, and eyes that fluttered open to reveal a stormy gray that seemed older than he was. "Hello," she whispered, tears falling freely. "Hello, my little Rowan." She wrapped him gently in the cloth she had carried all this time. And for the first time since she entered the night court, Lyra felt something stronger than fear. Hope. Emperor Caliph had not eaten, slept, or sat down in days. His eyes were darker than ever, the silver glow in them bright with fury and guilt. His hair was tangled from the wind, his cloak torn from pushing through thorns and branches. He scanned the forest floor with sharp eyes. "She is close," he whispered. Every step reminded him of his failures. Every broken branch, every footprint in the mud, every scrap of cloth snagged on a tree clawed at his chest. He replayed her face in his mind constantly, how tired she had looked, how quiet she had become, how she had flinched whenever someone addressed her harshly. And he replayed her last words to him, spoken weeks ago. "I'm not feeling well." He had ignored her. Brushed her off. Pushed her away. "I was a fool," he muttered. "A blind fool." His knights followed silently behind him, but Caliph stopped suddenly at the edge of a clearing. He smelled it. Ha! Warm. Human. Familiar. His heart slammed against his ribs. He stepped forward and saw the abandoned woodsman's hut. A faint trail of smoke drifted from a broken chimney. He froze. She was inside. He walked slowly, every part of him trembling. When he reached the door, he didn't push it open. He stood there, listening. A soft sound drifted out. A baby's cry. Kalitha's breath broke. His hand hovered above the wooden door, shaking. Then, he pushed it open. Inside, Lyra was curled around a tiny bundle. Her hair was messy, her gown torn, her body shaking from exhaustion. She looked up sharply, fear flashing across her eyes. "Kalith," she breathed. He froze. There she was. And in her arms, wrapped in the birthing cloth, was a child. His child. A tiny boy, sleeping softly, his chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Kalitha's voice cracked. "Lyra," he took one step forward, then stopped himself so suddenly it looked painful. Is he mine?" Lyra tightened her grip on the baby, her eyes wary. "Yes," she said softly. "He is yours." Kalitha's knees nearly buckled. He covered his mouth with his hand and let out a sound that wasn't quite a word, half a gasp, half a broken breath. He took another slow step, then another, until he was close enough to see the baby's face. The world stopped. Kalith swallowed hard. "He looks like you," Lyra finished quietly. "But he has my eyes." Kalith nodded, tears forming at the corner of his eyes he refused to let fall. "I thought I had lost him," he whispered. "Before I even knew he existed." Silence filled the hut, thick with regret and pain and something softer that neither of them dared speak yet. Kalith slowly lifted his hands, palms up. "May I?" His voice shook. "May I see him? Just see." Lyra hesitated. Then she gently turned the baby so Kalith could look. Kalith dropped to his knees in front of her. The Night Emperor, the strongest immortal in the realm, fell to his knees like a man begging for forgiveness. The baby stirred, tiny fingers stretching. Kalith let out a breath that trembled visibly. "He's perfect," he whispered. "Lyra, he is perfect." She looked at him, exhausted and wary. "Why are you here?" she asked softly. "You didn't care before." His head snapped up. "I cared," he said, voice breaking. "But I didn't understand. I thought distance would protect you. I thought silence would shield you." He shook his head violently. "But all I did was hurt you." Lyra looked away. He leaned forward slowly. "I failed you," he said. "I failed both of you. And I will never forgive myself." Her eyes softened, but she stayed quiet. Kalith reached out, not to touch the baby, but to gently hold Lyra's hand. Her fingers were cold. Shaking. He brushed his thumb across her knuckles. "Let me fix it," he whispered. "Let me protect you now. Let me protect him." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Kalitha's voice was a whisper. "I will not take him from you. I will not force you to return. I will only ask." He swallowed deeply. "Please, let me be a father." The wind outside howled softly. Lyra looked at her child. Then at the kneeling emperor. And the chapter closed with her whispering, "Then show me you mean it." Kalith stayed kneeling in the hut long after Lyra's whispered words faded into the air. The wind pushed through the broken walls, but he didn't move. He didn't reach for the baby. He didn't try to touch her again. He waited, still, patient, afraid of frightening her. Lyra watched him closely. She didn't trust easily anymore, not him, not anyone. But she could see it now, something she had never seen before. The Night Emperor looked human. Not weak. Not small. Just painfully honest. Rowan whimpered softly in her arms, and Lyra rocked him gently. "We can't stay here," she murmured. Kalith nodded slowly. "It is not safe. The woods hide dangers even I cannot control." She stiffened slightly. "Danger? You mean your hunters?" His jaw tightened. "I've recalled them. They will not come near you unless I call for them." She looked doubtful. "You expect me to believe that?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Because I fear them finding you more than anything else." He meant it. She felt it. Slowly, carefully, Kalith stood. His cloak fell around him like a shadow. He moved to the corner of the hut and removed his outer armor, dropping the heavy plates to the floor. "I will not look like an emperor to you," he said. Not here. He stripped off his gloves next, revealing hands that were surprisingly scarred, marks from old battles. Lyra blinked. She had never seen him like this, not polished, not cold, not perfect. Just a man. What are you doing? She whispered. He lowered himself to sit against the far wall, giving her plenty of space. Staying. Until you tell me to go. You'll stay here? She asked. Yes. In this broken hut? Yes. With me? His voice softened. With you. And with him. Lyra looked at Rowan, who slept peacefully against her chest. She exhaled. Then, stay. The first night was uncomfortable and tense. Caliph sat awake the entire time. He didn't sleep, vampires rarely did, but he also didn't close his eyes. He watched the entrance, hand resting lightly on the dagger at his side. He wasn't guarding himself. He was guarding them. Lyra lay on the small bed with Rowan beside her. Every time Rowan whimpered, Calith's eyes softened, but he didn't approach unless she allowed it. At dawn, she whispered, "He's hungry." Calith rose instantly, but carefully, slowly. "Do you want me to step outside while you feed him?" The question stunned her. No vampire had ever offered her privacy. No noble had ever respected her. And Calith? He had once barely spoken to her like she mattered. "Yes," she whispered. He nodded without hesitation and stepped outside. And he waited. Silent. Respectful. When she finished, he returned only after she called him. His eyes flicked to Rowan with awe. "May I?" he asked. She hesitated. Only for a moment, Calith added quickly, "If he cries, give him back right away." She slowly placed Rowan into his arms. Calith held the baby like he was holding a star, gently, almost worshipfully. Rowan blinked up at him with wide, stormy eyes. Calith smiled. The Night Emperor actually smiled. "Hello, little one," he whispered. I'm your father." His voice broke. Lyra felt something warm twist in her chest. Rowan's tiny hand reached up and grabbed Calith's finger. Calith inhaled sharply, as if struck. "He knows me," he whispered. He knows me." Rowan giggled quietly. Calith let out a shaky laugh, something no one in the palace would ever believe. Lyra watched from the bed, her heart caught between pain and hope. The days passed slowly, peacefully. Calith hunted animals for food, but he only killed what they needed, carefully, respectfully. He gathered wood, repaired the roof, and made small wooden toys for Rowan using his dagger and fallen branches. At night, he sat with Lyra by the fire as she held Rowan. One evening, she asked quietly, "Why didn't you ever talk to me?" "Really talk?" Calith stared into the flames. "Because I didn't know how. You talked to everyone else." "I talked at them," he corrected. "Not with them. With you. I was afraid." She blinked. "Afraid? Of what?" He turned his silver gaze to her, raw and unshielded. "Of wanting something I didn't deserve." Lyra froze. Calith continued softly, "You were warmth. And I am not." He looked down at his hands. "I feared that if I touched that warmth, I would destroy it." She didn't respond. He added, "And I was right. I almost did." She looked away, tears forming. Another night, she asked, "Why didn't you stop them? The nobles. The insults. The humiliation." His shoulders sagged. "I thought silence was strength," he said. "I thought if I ignored their cruelty, it would lose power." He swallowed hard. "But my silence gave them permission. I see that now." "And me," she whispered. "Did my pain not matter to you?" "It did," he said immediately. "More than anything. But I hid behind excuses. I let tradition blind me. I let fear make me cruel." She stared at him for a long moment. "You hurt me." "Yes." His voice shook. "And I am so deeply sorry." She looked down at Rowan. "I don't know if I can forgive you." Calith nodded, accepting it. "Then let me earn it." Calith never pressured her. Never demanded. Never raised his voice. He cooked, he protected, he held Rowan gently for hours while Lyra rested. Slowly, painfully slowly, she began to trust him again. One afternoon, Rowan cried endlessly. Lyra tried everything, but nothing worked. Let me try? Caliph asked softly. She nodded, exhausted. Caliph took Rowan into his arms, swayed gently, and hummed something ancient. A soft melody. A lullaby from the old world. Rowan stopped crying immediately. Lyra watched in awe. Caliph looked at her over the baby's shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. He shook his head. No, he said softly. Thank you. You gave me a family. Her eyes widened. And I will spend my entire eternity making sure you never regret it. In that moment, something inside Lyra shifted. The ice around her heart cracked, just a little. 1 month passed like this. A month of healing. A month of learning. A month of becoming something like a family. And when Caliph finally told her, the forest is not safe anymore. The hunters from other kingdoms are close. We need to move, Lyra didn't argue. She took Rowan into her arms, and stepped toward Caliph willingly. Okay, she whispered. Let's go. For the first time, they walked side by side. Not emperor and pet. Not immortal and human. But parents. Partners. A broken man and a broken woman trying to rebuild something new. Their journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. Caliph didn't take Lyra back to the Obsidian Palace. Not yet. Instead, he led her and Rowan to a hidden fortress deep in the northern mountains. A place only he knew. A place he had built long ago but never shared with anyone. When Lyra stepped inside the stone gates, she gasped softly. It wasn't grand or cold like the palace. It was quiet. Warm. Peaceful. This, Caliph said, lifting Rowan gently from her arms, will be your home. For now. She touched the wall. It felt warm from sunlight magic. You built this? Yes, he said. Long ago. For a queen I never had. Then his eyes softened. For a family I never thought I'd have. Lyra's heart tightened. Caliph stepped close, not touching her, but close enough that she felt his warmth. You and Rowan will stay here, he said. Safe. Hidden. Until I clean the court. She stiffened. Clean? Caliph's voice dropped into something cold and deadly. Yes. I will not let the nobles who mocked you continue their corruption. I will not let them breathe the same air as our son. Lyra swallowed. Caliph, what will you do? He brushed Rowan's tiny hair gently before handing him back. What I should have done long ago, he said. The next morning, Caliph left. He kissed Rowan's forehead, hesitant, gentle as if afraid of breaking him. He didn't kiss Lyra, but he touched her cheek with soft fingers. I will return, he whispered. And when I do, no one will ever dare hurt you again. Then he vanished into the shadows. The Obsidian Palace felt strange without his heavy presence. The nobles sat in the grand hall, sipping wine, whispering, gossiping. Lady Serene smirked as always. Perhaps he finally tired of that human, she said. Another noble laughed. Good. She was boring. The hall doors slammed open. Silence fell like a blade. Emperor Caliph entered. But this was not the quiet, controlled ruler they knew. His cloak was torn. His hair wild. His eyes glowing like burning silver. He looked like a storm. Everyone, he said, voice loud, cold, shaking the hall, on your knees. No one moved. Until the first noble screamed, his legs collapsing under invisible force. They all dropped, one by one. Lady Serene trembled. Your Majesty. Silence. His voice cracked the air like thunder. Caliph stood before them, eyes blazing. You mocked the woman carrying my child, he said. You tormented her. Laughed at her. Spilled wine on her. Broke her spirit. Serene swallowed hard. We didn't know. You didn't need to know. Caliph roared. She was under my protection. That alone should have been enough. They bowed lower, shaking. Caliph stepped closer. Because of your cruelty, she fled. Into the wilderness. Pregnant. Alone. Gasps filled the hall. And I almost lost her, he said, voice cracking. I almost lost my son. He raised his hand. Serene screamed as shadows wrapped around her. I showed you mercy once, Caliph said. I will not make that mistake again. He exiled her to the frozen wastes, no titles, no wealth, no name. Then he turned to the rest. For every insult you spoke, he said coldly, I will take something from you. He stripped titles, shattered ancient houses, and threw entire families out of the palace. Some he sent to distant borders to serve as soldiers. Others he demoted to simple workers. Only the few who had never mocked Lyra were spared. The palace trembled under his wrath. By sunset, the entire night court had fallen. Caliph stood alone in the hall, breathing heavily. He whispered into the silence. Now she will be safe. And for the first time in centuries, the Night Emperor felt peace. Days later, Caliph returned to the mountain fortress. Lyra was sitting by the fire, rocking Rowan gently. When she saw him, her eyes widened. You're back, she breathed. Caliph stepped inside, closed the door, and exhaled. It's done. Lyra studied him. He looked tired in a way immortality shouldn't allow. What did you do? What I promised. He stepped closer. No one will hurt you again. Rowan made a soft sound. Caliph smiled and reached for him. Lyra didn't pull away this time. Caliph held his son close to his chest, closing his eyes as if the baby was a warm light he had lived without for too long. You're safe now, my little one, he whispered. Lyra watched the two of them. Her heart softened. Slowly, carefully, she stepped closer and touched Caliph's arm. You kept your promise, she whispered. He looked at her with quiet devotion. I will keep every promise to you, he said softly. Until the end of time. The fire crackled beside them. And for the first time, Lyra felt like she was home. The mountain fortress became a quiet new world for Lyra and Rowan. Days passed in warmth, in firelight, in the soft rhythm of an infant's breathing. Caliph stayed close enough to help, far enough not to frighten her. He rose before dawn every morning, slipping silently out of the room so Lyra could rest. She always woke to a warm fire, fresh water, cleaned clothes, and scented herbs placed near the bed to help her body heal. But Caliph didn't stay away long. He always returned before Rowan opened his eyes. One morning, Lyra woke and found him sitting by the window, holding Rowan carefully and humming a soft tune. The Emperor, once cold, distant, and untouchably powerful, now looked small, gentle, human. A father. Lyra sat up slowly. You're awake early. Caliph glanced at her with a shy smile she'd never seen on him before. He woke up before dawn. I didn't want him to cry and wake you. She wrapped her blanket tighter. You didn't sleep. He shrugged. I don't need much sleep. She tilted her head. But you look tired. He paused, studying her face, the first warmth of concern she'd shown him in months. His voice went soft. It's a good tired. Rowan cooed, reaching for Lyra. Caliph smiled and passed him gently into her arms. When their fingers brushed, Lyra felt a spark, something new, something fragile, but alive. They sat together for a moment, watching the baby breathe. Caliph finally cleared his throat. Lyra, I need to tell you something. She looked up carefully. What is it? His expression turned serious. The kingdom is unsettled. The court is shaken. Some nobles are furious, others terrified. And the other vampire houses have begun to whisper. She stiffened. Whisper about what? You, he said simply. About us. About Rowan. Lyra swallowed. Are we in danger? Not with me here, Caliph said. But I will have to leave again. Only for a few days. Her heart tightened sharply. She didn't hide it. Don't be afraid, he added quickly. I will not go far. And no one knows this fortress exists. She looked down at Rowan's small hand wrapped around her finger. I don't want to be alone again. His chest tightened. You won't be. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and placed his hand gently over hers. I swear on my throne, Lyra, Caliph said softly. I will always come back to you. For the first time, she didn't doubt him. 3 days later, Caliph returned to the palace. The night court still trembled under his earlier wrath. Whispering voices died instantly the moment he entered the hall. Nobles bowed until their foreheads touched the floor, terrified to breathe too loudly. Caliph looked over them with cold, sharp eyes. "Rise." They obeyed, shaking. He knew this kingdom could not remain the same, not with Rowan in the world, not with Lyra finally safe. The old court, cruel, selfish, arrogant, would only destroy what he loved if left untouched. "It is time for change," Caliph announced. The nobles dared not speak. He continued, voice hard as iron. "From this day forward, titles will be granted for character, not bloodline. Kindness, intelligence, loyalty. These will be the new laws." Gasps rippled through the crowd. He raised a hand. "Any noble who mocks humans, belittles servants, or harms the weak will lose everything. No exceptions." The hall fell deathly silent. Caliph wasn't done. "There will be new leaders," he said. "People who know compassion." He turned to a small group of servants, humble, loyal faces that had once worked in silence. "You," he said to them. "Step forward." Terrified, they obeyed. Caliph removed a golden crest from his cloak and placed it in the hands of a young woman with trembling fingers. "From today, you are Lady Orin," he declared. "Advisor to the Emperor." She gasped, tears filling her eyes. He repeated this again and again, giving power to people who had never expected it, those who had shown quiet strength and kindness in a court drowning in cruelty. By nightfall, the night court had transformed. The cruel were gone. The humble were raised. The empire was shifting under Caliph's command. But as he stood alone in the grand hall, staring at the new banners hanging from the ceiling, he knew one thing. None of this mattered unless the woman he loved felt safe. His heart beat faster at the thought. "I must return to them," he whispered. For once, the court could survive without him. But Lyra and Rowan? They could not. He vanished into shadows, already halfway back to the mountains before the court realized he was gone. Back at the fortress, Lyra waited anxiously by the fire. She fed Rowan, sang to him softly, and wrapped him in warm blankets, but her eyes kept drifting to the door. Every small sound made her heart jump. She didn't want to admit it, but she missed him. Deeply. And Rowan? He always fussed a little more when his father wasn't there. The baby knew. Just before dawn, the door opened. Caliph stepped inside, exhausted but smiling softly. "Lyra," he breathed. Her chest tightened with relief. "You came back." "I always will." She didn't hesitate, she walked straight to him with the baby in her arms. "Rowan's been waiting," she whispered. Caliph reached for his son, holding him with both hands and pressing a gentle kiss to his tiny forehead. And Lyra noticed something she had never expected. Her heart no longer felt heavy. It felt full. Safe. Alive. Caliph glanced at her, voice low. "May I hold you, too?" She hesitated, but only for a heartbeat. Then she stepped into his arms. For the first time in their lives, they held each other willingly. And the kingdom, though far away, began to change in ways it never had before. 3 months passed inside the mountain fortress. 3 months of quiet mornings, soft laughter, and the warm glow of growing trust. Lyra watched Caliph grow from a distant emperor into a father who kissed bruised knees and soothed midnight cries, and into a man whose gentleness could silence a storm. And Caliph watched Lyra grow stronger every day, her fear softening into calm, her voice gaining strength, her eyes regaining their spark. They were healing. Together. But even in peaceful days, there were rumors gathering in the kingdom. Whispers of a human woman protected by the emperor. Whispered questions about the heir. Threats from jealous houses. Pressure from the council. Caliph knew one thing clearly. If he wanted Lyra and Rowan to live without fear, the world needed to see who she truly was. Not a servant. Not a pet. Not a fragile human hiding in the shadows. She needed to be seen. Honored. Respected. She needed to be queen. One evening, Caliph found Lyra standing outside the fortress under the silver sky. Rowan slept in her arms, bundled in soft blankets. Her hair spilled over her shoulders, lit by the moonlight. She looked like a star placed gently on earth. Caliph approached quietly. Lyra, he said softly. She turned, meeting his eyes. You're back from the palace again early. Yes, he said. Because I have something important to tell you. She raised an eyebrow. What happened? He looked at her, his heart pounding harder than any battle he'd fought. I want to take you home. She stiffened. Home? To the palace? No, he whispered. To the throne. She blinked. What? Caliph stepped closer, lifting a hand to cup her cheek gently. She didn't pull away. You are the mother of the heir, he said softly. But more than that, you are brave. Kind. Strong. You survived cruelty no one else could have. You protected our son. You protected yourself. He swallowed. And I realized, the kingdom will never change unless it sees the woman who changed me. Lyra's breath trembled. Caliph. I want you to be queen. Her eyes widened, her grip on Rowan tightening. I can't, she whispered. Caliph, I'm not. You are everything, he said. And if you don't believe it yet, let me show you. He sank to one knee. The Night Emperor, feared by nations, immortal, powerful, knelt before her. Lyra's breath caught. Lyra of the human lands, he said, voice steady and full of devotion, will you let me honor you? Will you stand beside me? Not as a consort. Not as a shadow. As my equal. My partner. My queen. Tears filled her eyes. I don't know if I deserve that. Caliph shook his head gently. You deserve more than I can ever give. She stared down at him, heart racing. Then she whispered, will they accept me? They will, he said firmly. Because I will make them. And Rowan? He will grow as a prince loved by his people, Caliph promised. Lyra looked at Rowan's sleeping face. At Caliph kneeling. At the sky above them. And she made a choice. She nodded slowly, tears falling. Yes, she whispered. I will be your queen. Caliph exhaled shakily, relief flooding his face. He stood and pulled her gently into his arms, kissing her forehead with trembling lips. Thank you, he murmured. Lyra smiled softly. Thank you for coming back for me. The coronation was unlike anything the kingdom had ever seen. The nobles stared in stunned silence as Caliph entered the grand hall, not alone, but hand in hand with Lyra. Rowan was in her arms, wearing a tiny silver cloak. Gasps filled the room. A human. Is she? That is the heir. Caliph ignored them all. He led Lyra to the throne. Not the smaller throne to the side, not the one consorts used. The main throne. The one beside his. Bow, Caliph commanded. Hundreds of people fell to their knees. Lyra's hands trembled. She looked at Caliph, unsure. He smiled softly. And then, he knelt before her. A hush fell over the entire hall. The emperor knelt. To a human woman. His voice echoed through the palace. Rise, Lyra, Sun Queen of the Night Realm. Queen of compassion. Queen of strength. My queen. The hall erupted in stunned silence. Lyra stepped forward, lifting his chin gently. I accept, she whispered. And I will lead with light. Caliph rose and kissed her hands before the entire court. When he stood beside her at the throne, he placed their son between them. The kingdom saw a new royal family. Not cold. Not cruel. Not distant. A family built on love. And as Lyra sat on the throne for the first time, Rowan sleeping peacefully in her arms, she finally felt something she thought she lost forever. Belonging. Caliph leaned close, his voice warm and soft. Welcome home, he whispered. Lyra smiled back. I'm home, she whispered. And the Night Realm, for the first time in centuries, felt the warmth of a rising sun. If you're hooked on this story, then trust me, what comes next will blow your mind. The Sun Queen's reign has only just begun, and danger is already lurking in the shadows. So hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss the next heart-stopping chapter. This story is far from over.